We worked on your showcase page in class today, so make sure you found your best project, your showcase show-off project, and your best chapter blog post. And those of you that were here, we got this done in class today. If you were absent, you need to get this showcase page completed with your evidence of my learning, that under the evidence of my learning section for math. So we began today reviewing how to show the algebraic steps of solving an equation. And remember, the purpose here is to keep balance. So whatever I do to the left side of the equal sign, I must do to the right side of the equal sign. And I want to isolate x. So it says the answer is whatever the answer is. So this one was x plus 34 equals 50. So what we want to do to isolate the variable x is subtract 34 from both sides, because 34 minus 34 is 0, and we know 0 plus x is x. So now 50 minus 34 is 16. We have our answer, x equals 16. We show our check. We take the original equation and we substitute 16 for x. So we just take out the x and put in the 16, and we add them. And 6 plus 4 is 10, carry the 1, 3 and 2 is 5. So now the left side, and just bring down the right side. If they match, you have your check and you know you're right. So we practiced 3 different types of problems with the same numbers, only some were positive and some were negative on your slates, and you had to show me your algebraic steps. So just to review, for this one we subtracted 29 from both sides. We got x equals 2. We showed our check by taking out x and substituting 2, and 29 2 is 31, and 31 on the left equals 31 on the right, so you know that you're correct. The second one, this time same numbers, except for this is a negative 31, so I isolate x the same way. I'm going to subtract 29 from both sides. On the left side we're left with x, and negative 31 minus 29 is negative 60. Remember, you add the opposite, so it's really negative 31 plus a negative 29, and that's negative 60. I show my check. I write the original equation, substituting negative 60 for x, and 29 plus a negative 60 is a negative 31. And now the left side is equal to the right side, and I know I'm right. And on this one, my 29 was negative, so the only way to get rid of a negative 29 here is to add 29. And if I add 29 on the left, I must add 29 on the right. And I'm left with x equals 60. Substitute 60 for x in the original equation, and 60 minus 29, which is the same thing as 60 plus a negative 29, is 31. And now 31 equals 31. I know I'm right. Okay, then we practice some with subtraction. So if I have some money and I spend 13 euros and I'm left with 57 euros, to find out how much I started with, just think about what you would do. You would just add 13 to 57. Well, algebraically, you do the same thing, but you've got to maintain balance in this equation. So I add 13 to both sides. Negative 13 plus 13, they're opposites. That's 0. So on the left side I have x, and on the right side I have 70. Show your check. 70 minus 13 is 57. And I just bring down the right side, and I prove that the left side is equal to the right side. Now this one's a little different because you have to simplify before you solve. So you add the opposite. So x minus a negative 13 becomes x plus 13. And now once I have it simplified, it's easy to see how to undo my addition by subtracting 13 from both sides. And I have x equals 44. Show your check. 44 minus a negative 13 is 44 plus 13, which is 57, which matches the right side of the equal sign. And this one, to undo, I'm going to add 13 to both sides. Negative 57 plus 13 is a negative 44. Show your check. Negative 44 in for x minus 13 becomes add the opposite. This becomes addition. The opposite of 13 is negative 13. And this debt makes a bigger debt. It is negative 57, and that is equal to the right side. All right, so now, how does this relate to what we're doing today? That was just a review to practice from before spring break. So the way that it relates to what we're doing today is simply that now we're dealing with inequalities, and this is about Graciella's suitcase, and this is much more similar to real life, because in real life, many more solutions are shown with inequalities, and in real life, that's often more models what you do. For example, it makes sense with the suitcase. You're limited on the weight of your suitcase when flying. This is about Graciella, and she doesn't want to pay an extra charge. So if you read page 13, 313, it shows you that she cannot have more than 50 pounds. She can have less than 50 pounds or equal to 50 pounds, but she cannot have more than 50 pounds or she has to pay a charge. So what you find out on this page is that she has an empty suitcase that weighs 16.85 pounds. That's just the suitcase. And we're going to let M represent all the weight of her stuff. Her clothes, shoes, toiletries, teddy bear, whatever she's going to put in the suitcase. And the weight of her stuff plus the weight of the empty suitcase must be less than or equal to 50 pounds. So to find the boundary point, that means what is the place on the number line when we graph this where we're going to put our hollow or closed circle. And to find the boundary point, it's literally what is M if it equals 50. This is what we're really solving, but the steps are the same. Just like you'd solve this by subtracting 16.85 from both sides, you do the same thing here. It's just that the solution is different because there are many solutions to the inequality. This equation has one answer, 33 and 1500ths. This has many answers because M is just less than or equal to 33.15. So just as I said, in real life, you could have several weights for your suitcase. It just can't be more than 33.15 pounds. So the way you solve this is the same way you solve an inequality. We subtract this from both sides, and we have the weight of all of Graciella's things must be less than or equal to this number of pounds. When we graph that, because it can equal 33.15 pounds, we need a solid circle there. And we shade to the left to 0 because it can't go on forever. We can't have a negative weight of her clothes and shoes. That doesn't make sense. And when we show a check, we pick a number easy to work with in the shaded region. I'm going to pick 10. And 10 plus 16.85 is 26.85, and that is less than or equal to 50. So we know we shaded the correct side. Okay, then we did this one about the stock market. We wrote down the key points. You can take a minute to read it again. And the question is, what's the opening value of the market? So in order to find the opening value of the market, we need to decide what variable we're going to let represent the opening value of the stocks. And we know that whatever it was at the beginning of the day, it fell 121 points, so we have to subtract 121. And at the end of the day, it was less than or under 11,250 points. And now we just need to solve this inequality. Just like you solve an equation, we add 121 to both sides. And now we know that M has to be less than 11,371 points. And think about that. If I had this number and then it fell 121, so I subtract 121, I get exactly 11,250, which is why it has to be less than 11,371. But this is our boundary point. So we put an open circle here because we can't include that number because it doesn't say or equal to, and we shade to the left. And then we check the solution the same way you check any of them. Pick a number like 10,000. It's less, and 10,000 minus 121 is definitely going to be smaller than 11,000 something. So you can just use estimation on that one. It's actually just as easy. Okay, the guided example on page 315, we had time in some classes for this and not time in others, so I'll just do the one that we did in all classes. So this was about a minor hockey league game, and on Friday it was less than what the stadium holds. There were less than 12,850 people, and on Friday there were more people than Saturday night. And the question is, what's the attendance on Saturday night? So the first step is to pick a variable to represent Saturday night. And we can let it be S, we can let it be N, and you guys chose in one class N, so we said N is Saturday night's attendance. And then you need to think, which night had more people? Well, it says Friday night's attendance was this many more people than Saturday. So I know that Saturday plus this number is going to be less than what it was on Friday, because Saturday plus this number is Friday night's attendance. So the next step, write this as an inequality. Saturday's attendance plus the 3,525 more people is less than the 12,850 people on Friday night. And then we just change that into a mathematical inequality. Saturday night plus 3,525 is less than 12,850. And now we solve that the same way we solved an equation. We subtract this from both sides, and then we have the answer for Saturday night's attendance is less than 9,325 people. So we graph that on our number line, open circle, up to 0. We can have less than 0 people, and we pick something easy to check. You guys picked 1,000. Well, 1,000 plus 3,000 is 4,000. So that's 4,525 people is definitely less than 12,850 people. So we know that we shaded the correct side. Then you tried one yourself. So Sarah wants to spend less than 45 euro on meals for the entire day. This is how much she spent for breakfast. This is how much she spent for lunch. The question is, how much money does she have left to spend on dinner? So most of you picked D for your variable for that. So we know that D or M, another class picked M, her breakfast plus her lunch plus her dinner meal has to be less than 45. So you need to simplify before you solve. Breakfast and lunch added up to 15. And 15 plus M must be less than 45, so subtract 15 from both sides. And M is less than 30, which means she must spend less than 30 euro on her dinner in order to be under 50. So I pick a number. If I graphed it, I would have, let me see, did I show that on the next one? Yeah. So if we graph this, we have an open circle because it can't equal 30. Otherwise, it'll be equal to 45 euro, and it has to be less than 45 euro. And she can't have less than 0 euro. So we shade, and if I pick a number in here like 20, and I show my check, 20 for M for dinner, plus 15 is 35, and 35 is less than 45, so we know that we're correct. So you use part of your shaded area for your check. All right, you have a quiz next class on fact triangles and using fact triangles to solve for x and balanced equations for x and inequalities. So do the basic for homework if today was at all challenging. Only do the challenge if you found today really easy. For your quiz, study the examples, vocabulary, and screencasts. And that's it.